Okay, Phil, thanks for joining us today. Can you start by introducing yourself to our viewers? Tell us a bit about you and your background, please.
Hi, my name's Phil Campion. I am the champion of the Army Cadet Force. What does that mean? Well, I'm sort of like the head ambassador for the Army Cadet Force, for want of a better word. My background is, as a young person, I was brought up in children's homes. I progressed onto the armed forces, where I had a fairly decent career for about 15 years, culminating in me becoming a member of 22 Special Air Service. I moved on from there onto the private military circuit, where I spent about 15 years privately contracting around the world, military skills, training, and all sorts of bits and pieces. I then from there moved into the world of television and book, and now I just cut around doing my own thing.
Cool.
That's great.
Just to kind of talk back about the champion there. So this is obviously a role that was introduced last year. Can you just tell us a bit more about your role and what that role involves and how you become involved in that role?
Okay, so on the day I joined my battalion in Tidworth after my basic training, I had my interview with my company commander, a guy called Major Finclair, and he asked me what was my bigger picture for life. And I said to him, boss, I said, I'm hopefully will have a great army career, a great career for myself. I said, and when I've finished, I want to put something back. Now, before becoming the champion for the Army Cadet Force, I was speaking with Bear Grylls about his role with the Scouts, because he's the chief head Boy Scout, or whatever he likes to call himself. And he said, look, the Army Cadets don't have an equivalent. Why don't you approach them? Which I did. And at the time I was approaching them, they were thinking about having an ambassador similar to myself, and I just hit the sweet spot at the right time, shall we say? And now I am the champion of the Cadet Force. That's
great. You just casually name dropping Bear Grylls there. I like that.
Just dump them in. I'll throw a throw in later, Joe.
So you've obviously had a really successful career within the Army. Can you tell us a bit about your motivation for your SAS selection and what motivates you now?
Yeah, selection, right. I was never rank orientated in the Army. And some people think, yeah, you're crazy not to be. I always wanted to be kicking the doors in and not writing about it, if that makes sense to you, okay? Yeah. So I sort of like, once I reached full screw within the battalion, you know, section commander for me was epitomised what the infantry was all about. That was the job for me. That was the man that led another 8 men into battle. That's really where I wanted to be. I never wanted to be a platoon sergeant. I didn't want to fill in people's leave chits. I didn't want to do anything like that, okay? So from there, I moved on to Special Forces. I'd been exposed to Special Forces. I'd seen them operate in places like Northern Ireland, and I absolutely loved what they did. And it made sense, because if you went to Special Forces, you then relinquished whatever rank you were and became a trooper again. So it meant you were number one in the door again, which was awesome for me. That's exactly what I wanted. And like I say, I spent the rest of my I spent about 5 years there, and then moved on into Civvy Street. But I never ever wanted to go up the ranks.
Mm-hmm. Phil, just to kind of touch on your career a bit more. Now, you've been a lot of dangerous places around the world. Some of those places being Afghanistan. I was doing a bit of research as well, and I read that you'd once sewn in a flash drive into your clothes, and it was you know, just in case something bad had happened to you. Can you tell us about that kind of moment whenever you came up with the idea of the U-tag?
Yeah, so I had been cutting around Afghanistan, and I had lost my passport once and not been able to prove that I had a passport at all. So obviously now I'm in Afghanistan, I might as well be an Afghan, hadn't I? I've got no way out. I've got no way of proving who I was. So what I decided to do was store all the information that I needed that was key to anybody. If they scraped me off the floor, that they could go, oh, look, he's got a USB, plug it in. And if I was unconscious and couldn't speak for myself, I could have something that would speak for me. I got home, I met a friend of mine. We were just chatting about the idea, and he said, what a great idea. It's like a digital dog tag type thing. And that's where it came from. We invented the U-tag. I met a businessman who had loads of money. He threw loads of money at it. We developed this thing, and then we sold it on, and all the rest of it. But it did, for the best thing, it did save more than one life. So I'm quite happy about that. I didn't retire on it, which was the plan originally. I thought, wow, this is the big one, like, do you know what I mean? But it's who dares wins, Rodney. Try something else. Do you know what I mean?
So Phil, you've obviously got a huge presence on social media. Can you tell us a bit about your career now? We know that you have your own YouTube channel, you're an author, we've listened to your audiobook. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, the books came about when I wrote the first book, Born Fearless. I didn't want to be what I call a one-book wonder. If I was going to stick my head above the parapet and declare myself into the world of media, I didn't just want to do one book. So I decided to use that as a brand. And so the brand became like Warm Fearless, and I've sort of like evolved that brand. The social media, the television work has all been part of that. And so I just continue now with the YouTube channel, you know, my social media presence, just to try and develop that brand, because I can't really go back to security. I'm a bit too old for that anyway, to be honest. There isn't that much, you know, I can't join the army again at my age and do what I want to do. So, you know, what's left open for me to do is what I'm doing. And I'm enjoying myself. I'm not making piles of dough doing it. There's no sort of like, but I'm enjoying it. Yeah. And so, you know, my theory is so long as I can do something I'm enjoying, I'm not working. So I don't work anymore. I just enjoy what I do.
That's good. And you obviously featured in a documentary. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Big Phil's War.
Yeah, Big Phil's War. Right, so in my quest to get myself onto television and further my media career, I was doing some work with a company called Keo. We were determined to try and get something away on television, and the producer there, Toby, ended up getting a slot where he controlled the talent on Sky Television. He got hold of me and said, look, Phil, if you can find something for you to do, I'll give you a job. You can make a documentary. And we looked for stuff to do, and it had to be something that a normal journalist couldn't do. And I said to him jokingly, I said, if we don't get something done soon, Toby, I might as well go to Syria with the rest of them and start fighting there. And he went, what a great idea. He said, just take a camera instead of a gun, mate. I went, yeah, all right, then we'll do that then. That was it.
Oh, that's great.
Phil, if you were stranded on a tropical island, then what 2 things would you want with you? If you could only choose 2.
Oh. Well, it's a toss-up between the dog and the missus.
That's a tough one.
I'm also going to need, I don't know, let me think. No, I think outside of the, well, the dog and the missus. The dog and the missus will do. They can suffer and all. If I've got to suffer, they can suffer. How about that?
There you go. You can keep them both happy by taking them both with you.
That's it. I'll take them both.
Phil, can you tell us a bit about some of the skills you learned during your military career and how you use them now in your daily life?
Oh, Hearts and Minds is a big one. Hearts and Minds is massive for me, because one of the things I came away from the regiment with was, you know, judge a person by the way they treat somebody who can do nothing for them. All right, that's a massive thing for me. All right, I really do try and treat everybody the same, and I try and, you know, never be above people and all that sort of stuff. You know, that sort of thing. The Hearts and Minds, the blending in, the bringing people together, you know, is massively important for me. And especially in my role within the ACF, you know, that's a huge bit I bring to that, I think, you know, or try and spread the word with that anyway. Other skills I've learned, practical skills, obviously the soldiering skills. There's not many places I can practice that nowadays, is there? You know, so being a demolitionist and, you know, an underwater knife fighter and all the rest of it hasn't really got its place in Civvy Street. But what you do learn is some skills, leadership, teamwork and all that sort of stuff, which will stay with me for life. And the odd thing like, you know, Mr. Gundo idiomas es español, más o menos. So I speak languages and that sort of stuff. So it's cool, you know.
Are you fluent in Spanish?
Más o menos. I can get by. I can get by. Do you know what I mean? I don't have to be last in the queue. I can sort of like jump a little bit.
I like it. So Phil, you're talking a lot about core values, and obviously core values is a big thing in the Army Cadet Force. Could you kind of give us a reason why we should encourage more kids to join the Army Cadet Force, or even just the Cadet Forces as a whole? Right.
My big thing with the Army Cadets, as with any youth organisation, is the schools can only do so much for you, all right? They've got a curriculum that they have to stick to, which is set out by the government, all right? So you're going to do maths, you're going to do English, you're going to do blah, 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 blah. The rest of the skills, you're going to have to go away and develop yourself. So if you can come to an organisation like the Cadet Force, you're going to be learning skills for life. You're going to be getting first aid skills. You're going to be doing all this stuff that the schools can't touch on. So you're going to get so much more. Hopefully you'll get involved with the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme. It's just what the gateway that opens up will deliver you into society a lot better person for having been where you've been. All right? School's great. School will get you A, B, C, and D. But this will get you the rest of the alphabet. All right?
I like it. That's a good answer.
Phil, if you had to give a piece of advice to your 16-year-old self, what would it be?
Oh, listen to what you were told, Phil, because I was murdered. I've got in so much trouble. I've been in so much trouble in my life. If I'd have just listened to what I was told and did what I was told, I'd have had a lot different life. All right, so I've made so many mistakes. But my thing is now, I should have looked. People made those mistakes before me. I wasn't the first person to ever mess up. if I'd have listened to people and taken it on the chin. But yeah, no, I should have calmed right down and started listening, receiving when I was sending and all that sort of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Phil, obviously supporting young people's obviously a clear kind of passion of yours, and doing a bit more research. You're obviously the national champion for the Cadet Force, but you're also an ambassador for Childline Rocks. Can you tell us a bit more about that and how you got involved in that?
Yeah, I haven't done a lot with them recently, but I got involved with those through a friend of mine. It was actually Andy McNabb introduced me to this fella. Some sort of
another name drop.
Yeah, there you go.
I've read a
Andy
lot.
McNabb, that one. You know that Andy McNabb, yeah? All right, so yeah, General Jack, another name drop. General Jackson. Then the list goes on, right? I don't want to drag all sorts of people in the list. No, I got introduced to them at a charity gig where he was signing some books and giving them away. And, you know, they asked me if I could do a few bits and pieces for them, and I have done. You know, I haven't seen them for quite a long time, to be honest. But, yeah, that was one of the things. And like I say, so since then, you know, charity-wise, the Remembrance Rumble is obviously a huge part of my life. Boxing every year now is massive for me. So that's sort of like, that's one of my main things I do. And like I say, supporting the Army Cadet Force now are my two main things, really.
So you've obviously achieved a lot of things. You know, you've had a really interesting life. What would you like to be remembered for, Phil?
I don't know. Just a bloke that did what he could do. Like, do you know what I mean? I've tried to make the best out of everything I've ever had. Mm-hmm. You know, it hasn't always been great. It hasn't always been good. But what I have done is I've always tried to do the best I can with what I've got.
Mm-hmm. We'll take that.
Phil, if you were a young person now watching this and you're getting into trouble, what advice would you give? And would you recommend a life in the military, given obviously your upbringing, your background, and what it is that you've achieved in the Army?
I'd say to young people that are getting in trouble now, right? Being in trouble isn't the end of the world, all right? Mm-hmm. You've got what I call a blank canvas, okay, up until a certain point. The sooner you can sort yourself out, the better it will be for you, all right? I've made loads of mistakes. Like I say, when I was in the children's home, I had juvenile offences. I've had all sorts of stuff, okay? It goes back to listening and doing what you're told. And the sooner you can get your head round that you need to fit in somewhere in life and just get on with it, all right, the better it will be for you. There's nothing wrong with having a checkered past, as it were, but it's so much better once you realise which direction you should be going in and start working correctly, all right? So the sooner you can get it right, the better it will be for you.
No, that's great, Phil. Thanks. Can you tell us an interesting fact about you that we don't already know? This is your chance to get in some of those names.
I'll tell you a really interesting fact, right, which you won't know about me. The first ever activity I indulged in outside of school was ballet.
Oh wow!
There you go. So I was a budding ballet dancer when I was a young kid.
Billy Elliot.
I'll break my toes now, like, you know what I mean? Yeah, I don't need to drop any names for that. Well, that's interesting enough. And I did a bit of ballet when I was a young lad.
No, that's great. Phil, we're going to move on to asking you some questions that our cadets have asked us and adult volunteers, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's cool.
So the first one comes from Lance Corporal Joe Payne, who's a cadet at Nairn Detachment, and he's asked, what was the transition like coming out of the Special Forces? Was it difficult, and was there any part of it that you found especially challenging?
Yeah, I came out, like I say, a little bit earlier than planned, and it was partly down to my own fault. I'd had a few issues with my sergeant major, a few issues downtown. I'd been in a few fights and what have you. And I actually PVR'd, I bought my way out. So I hadn't planned to get out when I did. And that threw up its own challenges as it was, because I wanted to stay in for a few more years than what I did. So it was very difficult. It was a challenging time when I got out. I had a few, probably looking back now, I had a few health issues as well upstairs, and I didn't want to talk to them about anybody. I didn't want to let them go because I thought I'd make myself unemployable. And it's one of the things now is not a regret, but looking back, I should have sort of like acknowledged my mental health a lot quicker than what I did. It's taken me years to talk about mental health, whereas in fact, right back then, I probably wouldn't have left the Army if I'd have acknowledged my mental health and done something about it at the right stage.
Our next question, Phil, is from our Company Sergeant Major in Caithness Company. This is from Keith Farquhar. And he's asked, to come through the 3 toughest military selections in the British Army is stuff of role models. Who is or was your role model, and what inspired you to keep going?
It was really difficult for role models for me, because when I went through the school system, like I say, I completely dropped out. So I ended up in a children's home. I didn't have the best time there. So role models were quite a scarcity for me. Mm-hmm. One of the things that actually got me into the army, I was on a bus and I found a book about the SAS. And I looked at it, it was mainly pictures and all, which was the right treat for me because I wasn't very good at reading, all right? So I got this book, and it was a pictorial history of the SAS. And it had on the very front cover some geezer going over there, Brecon Beacons with an M203, and I thought, yeah, I'll have some of that. And that was one of the biggest things. Just looking at that book and thinking to myself, I want to be one of these geezers one day. I want to be roaming around the planet with a gun. And that was it. I became one of those geezers.
That's great. So our next question is from Lieutenant Stuart Nicholson in Ross Company, and he's asked, do you miss army life? And if you had a second run at it, would you choose another path?
I definitely wouldn't choose another path. I'd be in the military. I would join the army again every time if I had the choice, and I'd join it as soon as I could as well. All right, so that's not even an option. That's out of the way. What was the first part of that again? Sorry,
Do you miss army life?
Of course, I miss army life. Who wouldn't? That said, I mean, I'm still involved with you guys. I love coming away. I'm still involved with my sons. Both my sons are in the military. One's an officer. One's a Tom. So I've got a map reader and a non-map reader. Yeah, I still cut around. I still get invited to mess dues. I still go down and visit Livingston. I still go and see the parachute regiment and do a bit of boxing with them now and again. So I'm fairly lucky in as much as, although I'm a civilian, it's in the loosest terms ever.
Yeah. Next question then is from Mitchell Colley in Elgin Detachment, and he has asked, what caused you to try for Special Forces selection, and how did you feel when you got told you were in?
Right, so this is another one. It was behaviour driven. So I did P Company, and we'd amalgamated from the Royal Hampshire Regiment to the Princess of Wales's Royal Regiment, and I had a bit of an issue with it at the time. So I bypassed my commanding officer and went straight. I got the phone number of Brigade Commander, who was a guy called Johnny Holmes, and I phoned Johnny up and I said, "Sir, I've just passed P Company. Can I transfer to Free Para?" And he said, "Yeah, of course you can, son." And he laughed and put the phone down and phoned my CO up. And my CO went absolutely mad. I got called up to the office. I got shouted at for about 20 minutes by the RSM. Then I got shouted at by the adjutant. By the time I got to the CO, I had a massive argument with him. I said, no. I said, I'm not being disloyal. I said, I didn't amalgamate the regiment. And anyway, I came out of there, and the Battalion 2IC was a guy called Henry Egan, who was once in charge of the Cadet Force, okay? He was the colonel for the Cadet Force. And he turned around to me and he said, well done, Corporal Campion. He said, you've reached your ceiling in an afternoon. He said, you bloody idiot. So I said, what's my options then, boss? He said, well, Civvy Street. He said, well, why didn't I have a bash at Special Forces selection? And I'd obviously seen the lads cutting around, and it's been something that I'd wanted to try. And to be honest, I'd put it off. And then I thought, no, I'll tell you what, I'll go for it. I'll do it now. And that was it. And with reference to the day I passed, it was quite surreal. Because you sat there and it's like, on one's turn of the coin, it's the best day ever. But then you suddenly realise that you're right down at the bottom again, you know? So you go and join a squadron as the new guy, you know what I mean? And you're like, I'll tell you a quick story, right? If I've got time to tell you a quick story.
Yeah, of course, go for it.
So I got me kit. I got issued all this new shiny kit in Hereford, all right? And then we were on the counter-terrorism team, and I got all my black kit, and I got my respirator, and all the bits and pieces, and my guns and whistles, and I thought, this is brilliant. And I got given a pager, right? So in them days, you didn't have mobile phones, you had a pager. Biggest responsibility I'd ever had. I've never had so much responsibility. And I was cutting around Sainsbury's with my pager in my pocket, and it went off. And I'm like, wow, we're going to war. This is unreal. So I'm legging it back up to camp, right? I get into camp. I goes past the gate. Yeah, I've got to sort the world out, mate. Don't worry. So I runs into camp, runs past G Squadron's office, runs up the stairs, runs past A Squadron's office, like that. Comes sliding in front of my boss. Yeah, I'm here. And he went, good. He said, the vicar's got some tents he wants a hand putting up. He says, can you go and do it? I was like,
that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Class Sergeant Taggart, I'll let you ask that last question, seeing as it's one from you.
Yes. So obviously doing a good bit of research for this. You know, you were talking about there that your history and your kind of upbringing, you got into bits of trouble and stuff. What is the biggest mistake that you've made, and how did you come back from it? Bit of a kind of deep personal one.
Oh, do you know what? I'll tell you the lowest point I've ever had, and I'm going to be really honest with you. It was about 8 years ago. No, probably about 7 or 8 years ago now. and I'd had a bit of a run in. I'd smashed my own house up. I put a few windows through. I had a few issues, and I ended up remanded in custody in Winchester Prison. And my first night in prison, I was that low I could have got under a snake's belly with a top hat on. All right, I was absolutely mortified, murdered. I was like inside. I was dead. And I caught myself washing in the morning. I looked in the mirror and I promised myself that I would never ever sink to this depth again. All right, and I literally spent a lot of time. I was on remanded in custody for about 6 weeks. So I was in Winchester Prison for about 6 weeks. And in that time, I did nothing but work on my own mental health. And I did some maths lessons. I did all sorts of stuff I would never do. And I just tried to keep myself as positive as I could. When I got out, all the charges eventually got dropped and things went suddenly back to normal. A friend of mine got me back on my feet with a job, and I've never looked back. And it just, having been that low, you know, you've got to have that own drive inside you. There's some places you can go that other people can't help you. All right. And that's when you've got to rely on yourself, and you've got to go, right, sort yourself out. And you'll get this, like, everybody will have it one day. You'll get this, like, I call it a come to Jesus moment. You'll look in the mirror and go, you lunatic. All right, time to sort yourself out, all right? And that's exactly what I did. I took a long, hard look at myself, a long, hard think. Tell yourself the truth. The only person on this planet you can't lie to is yourself. You know when you're doing right, and you know when you're doing wrong. And you know when you've messed up, and you know when you haven't put in enough effort. You can bluff to every other single person on this planet, but you can't look in that mirror at night and bluff yourself, all right? So have a word with yourself. Sort yourself out sometimes is my thing on that.
No, that's great, Phil. Thanks again for highlighting the importance of mental health and actually speaking about how you're feeling as well. I think that's really important, especially during this period when we're locked down and maybe not socialising as much as normal.
Mental health is huge. Mental health for me is absolutely huge, and something that I should have taken serious a long, long time ago, if I'm honest. Yeah. And it's something that I would encourage other people to seriously look at themselves, ask themselves questions, and speak out if there's a problem. If there's a problem, speak out. I don't know what you're thinking, do I? You've got to let me know. Don't be worried about what I'm going to think, or I'm not going to be judgmental, but let me know if there's a problem. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think that'll be really comforting for the cadets watching this to hear, and adults. There's always someone you can talk to. Now we're going to move on to our quick fire 22 round. So we'll ask you a question with an either or answer, and you choose the best option. Are you ready?
Morning.
Okay, gazpacho or paella?
Paella.
Cat or dog?
Dog.
Facebook or Twitter?
Twitter.
Ketchup or HP?
HP.
Truth or dare?
Who?
Truth or dare?
Oh, I'll take the dare. Just because I like dares.
Action Man or Stretch Armstrong?
Action Man. Only just though.
Sweets or crisps?
Sweets.
Coffee or tea?
Tea.
TV or book?
TV, I'm afraid.
No.
5.56 or 7.62?
Oh, I'm gonna say 5.56, but for me, so long as it works, I don't care, and I've got enough.
Summer or winter?
Winter.
I think we'll know the answer for this one, but skydive or a bungee jump?
Oh, well, there ain't a bungee would hold me or a parachute at the moment. I'm too big. I'll probably have to do a combination of both above. That's a sort of like skydive on a bungee. But no, given the choice, skydive.
Red or green?
Green.
Green. Fieldcraft or navigation?
Fieldcraft all day.
Beer or whiskey?
Whiskey, probably. I like me whiskey. I like me single malts. I like you lot got some good stuff up there. I like that. It's all right.
The next one then is, do you prefer MTP camouflage or tundra camouflage?
Tundra all day.
Tundra, yeah. You've got a lot of tundra.
That is my cam. That's Phil Cam, not tundra.
Would you rather watch a romantic comedy or a horror film?
Oh, horror. Romance with me is horror.
Next one then is a book or an audiobook?
An audio book.
Audiobook.
Believe it or not, I don't like reading. I know it's one of those things I should do more of, but I just don't. I don't know. I like listening.
Physical health or mental health?
Sorry?
Physical health or mental health? So your fitness or your mental health? What would you rather work on?
I'm going to say my mental health. My physical health has always been fairly decent. My mental health is the one that's always let me down.
Early morning or a late night, Phil?
Early morning all day. I love an early morning. And a late night turns into an early morning with me anyway.
Royal Marine Commandos or the Parachute Regiment?
Oh, I hate it when you do this to me. I'm going to say Parachute Regiment because I'm Army Cadets and not Marine Cadets, all right?
And Phil, number 22 is dancing or singing?
Oh, dancing all day. I'm a mover. I'll bust some shapes you and maybe make a video for you, all right?
Yes, please.
We'll have a dancing competition. We'll see who's got the shapes, all right?
That's brilliant.
Well, Phil, that's great. Thank you so much. That's all of our questions and everything. What's lockdown like over there?
Lockdown's lockdown here. We are properly locked down, not sort of like wishy-washy, might what. You know what I mean? We are. Lockdown means if you go out, you get in trouble. Yeah. That said, they're just starting to peel back the layers now. So we're getting a little bit like we can go out and walk for an hour now, which we couldn't do for the first 6 or 7 weeks. It's been pretty tough, to be honest.
That's tough. Phil, we'll just finish the interview with a wee message for our cadets and adult volunteers, if that's okay from you.
Yeah, look, it's a difficult time, but difficult times make decent people, all right? And that's how it is. So look, I love what you do. Just keep doing it. It doesn't matter if you're doing it digitally for now. Okay, it will all come good in the end. So look, please, all of you, keep doing what you're doing. Cadet Force, adult volunteers. Without you, there is no organisation, and I love what you do. All right, so please keep doing it. Cadets, I love you all. You're great. All right, keep doing what you're doing.
Phil, thank you so much again for letting us interview.
Yeah, no, anytime. Honestly, I love it.
Take care.
All right.
Cheers.
All right. Be lucky. See you later.